I'm Lena.
And I'm Isla.
Oskar is on sound recording, and we're reading ambassadors and members of the S2 Book Club. We're here to talk to Miss Barnes from the amazing ASN department about books and her love for reading. This interview is for the library's Pret radio podcast, which you can find on YouTube. Miss Barnes, we know you're a big reader, but have you always been since you were a girl?
Yeah, I was one of these children that was a bit sad and read everything, like the backs of cereal boxes at breakfast and that kind of thing, the backs of the shampoo in the bathroom. I'm that sad person. And I think Jerry Lavin, she's like, yeah, it's me too. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Good, it's not just me. Yeah, excellent. See? It's marvellous. My dad's a big reader. My mum not so much, but my dad was a big reader. And he used to always get like the National Geographic magazines and the 14 Times magazines. And I would sit on the couch and I'd like follow it with him. So I started reading quite young. So by the time I got to school, I could already read a little bit. So it was really handy when I started school that I had that little knowledge. So yeah, it was great. I had a different book every couple of days. So yeah, and that's continued. I don't get to read as much now as I used to be able to. Because just life gets in the way, doesn't it? But it's definitely one of my preferred ways to spend like a Friday night if I've not got anything else on.
Why do you think reading is so important for kids and adults?
I think you're going to come across words and literacy in every single aspect of your life. Words and literacy are absolutely everywhere. I mean, you come across them almost every minute of every day. And if your literacy skills, aren't as good as they could be, then you'll really struggle throughout life. And that's a real shame that you won't maybe unlock the potential that you have to be the best you can be because your maybe literacy skills aren't as great as they could be. And the best way to develop your literacy skills is to read. And also, I've got so many books that I spent years reading and loving, and those stories are so much better than any TV show or any film that there ever could be, because you get to let your imagination run riot. And even now, when I've watched films and TV shows of books that I've read, I don't see the TV or film characters in my head when I'm reading them. I see the ones that I envisaged when I first read the book. And I think that reading really helps creativity. So if you're quite a creative person or you need creativity, reading is a really, really good way to start.
What is your favourite book of all time?
Oh, right. So my favourite book of all time is a book called The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. And contradictory to what I just said, I actually saw the cartoon version first because they made a cartoon version in the early 90s. And it was only like years later, because in the early 90s I was, practically a fetus. So I years later found out that it was a book. So I was like, excellent. So when my skills were, good enough, I read the book, and it's just a fantastic story. Ray Bradbury is a wonderful writer and has written an awful lot. But The Halloween Tree is story of a group of children on Halloween. They're going out trick-or-treating. It's set in the USA. They're all dressed as something different. So one of them is dressed as like a monstery gargoyle, one of them's a mummy, one of them's a witch, one of them's a skeleton, and they're meant to be waiting on one of their friends, and one of their friends doesn't turn up. And they go trick-or-treating without them. There's no sign of their friend, and they come across like a creepy old building, and there's a man there, Mr. Moundshroud, who's like dressed in a cloak. And in the garden of this big kind of mansion-y haunted house thing, there's a big tree, and the tree's covered in pumpkins, and the pumpkins have all got faces carved into them. And the point of the story is that each of those pumpkins on that tree represent a living person. And in the book, when the spark inside the pumpkin, like the light goes out, that's when that person dies. And what happens is the friend that's missing from the group actually appears, but as a ghost. And he takes his pumpkin off the tree and runs away. Turns out that he's really ill, and he's in hospital, and this is his kind of spirit coming to take his pumpkin away. They try and chase him along with Mr. Moundshroud, the man from there, and they chase him through time, and he takes them to the different times in history of Halloween and what it was like for each of their costumes. So the guy that's dressed as the mummy, so they go back to ancient Egypt and they look at what was Halloween like in ancient Egypt times. They look at the Salem witch trials for the girl that was dressed as the witch. They go to Notre Dame Cathedral for the gargoyle, and they go to the Day of the Dead in Mexico for the skeleton. And they go and look at all the different traditions of Halloween throughout the time, all in this kind of fictional story. So you're learning a little bit about like Halloween past and you're also enjoying a really good fictional story. So perfect book in my opinion, which is a lovely combination of the two.
Why do you like it so much?
Oh, I've told you I like it so much. You know what? Like I say, it's a really nice combination of you learn stuff and it's a story. And I think you need a little bit of both in your reading kind of library. I used to read a lot of the horrible science and horrible history books. I've read all of them about 100 times. You can see them over there on my bookshelf. I've got my horrible science box and I've got my horrible history one somewhere as well. And they were wonderful because they taught me so much. Like, I'm a whiz at pub quizzes now because of those stuff that I used to read when I was a kid. Like, honestly, you want me on every pub quiz team. Cats Protection League, Arbroath District champions for goodness knows how many years in a row we were, thanks to my reading of the horrible science books and the whatnot. So it's nice to read a book that you can get lost in the story, which you can with, I think, The Halloween Tree, but also one that maybe teaches you a little bit of something as well.
Do you have a favourite author?
I think I've got a couple of favourite authors. One of my favourite authors is Darren Shan. I read a lot of Darren Shan books when I was younger, right the way through my teenage years. And to be honest, I'd still pick up one now. I don't really care that they're meant for like 14-year-olds. I'll read it anyway, I don't care. So I started off reading the kind of the Vampire's Assistant books, so the Cirque du Freak kind of stories. There was about 14 books of them. Then there's the Demonata series. And then there's the zombie series as well, which actually didn't come out that long ago. And I remember reading them as a grown-up. I was like, oh, damn, Shan's got a new book out. I'll buy that and buying it on my Kindle. So I really like that kind of genre of stuff. I quite like that kind of creepy, mystical kind of genre. But I also love Stephen King's books as well. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. One of my favourite books is The Green Mile, which I absolutely love. And it's one of the few books that the film hasn't done a huge disservice to, so I can cope with the film as well. But I really love Stephen King books. I also love Irvine Welsh, the Scottish author. I love his books as well. Definitely not appropriate for any of you, so don't even get any ideas. However, they're really entertaining as well. So they're kind of like my top three. I mean, I do love Jacqueline Wilson. I was a big Jacqueline Wilson fan when I was your age. Read all. I met her once at Forfar Library. She was a lovely woman. Lots of rings. Had to take off all her jewellery to type because she jangled so much. She was brilliant. I'm jangling as well now. She was a wonderful woman. I really, really liked her. So yeah, they're probably my top authors, I'd say.
Why? Is it the storytelling or the characters or the subject matter that's appealing?
I think it's the storytelling. I think that the characters are important. You've got to be able to relate to the characters in some way. But I think you can't beat a good story. And I think that's why people have kind of preferred genres of stories, is because of the storytelling aspect of a book. I like the Jacqueline Wilson books because a lot of the storytelling was really relevant to the age that I was reading it. A lot of it was stuff that was happening in, my life at the time. There was like drama between girls and there was girls that were worried about their appearance and things like that. So it was quite relevant to what I was feeling when I was a teenage girl. And the Stephen King books, yeah, it's the storytelling there. I mean, even thinking back to like The Green Mile, obviously the character development of a couple of those characters is phenomenal. But it's the story, and it just makes you want to keep turning the page, and that's what I think is important in a book. I'm one of these people that will sit down and read a book, and before I know it, 6 hours has gone past, and I've forgotten to eat, I've forgotten to have a drink, I've meant to have picked up someone somewhere, yeah. And I'm still sitting in the house knee deep in this book. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'll just have one more chapter. And if a book can make you do that through the story, then it's an absolute win, if you ask me.
What are you currently reading?
Oh, what am I currently reading? So I'm actually currently reading a couple of scripts. So I do a lot of Amdram theatre, and one of my pals at the theatre, Dan, he's putting on a play in June, which I'm hoping to be in. So he gave me the script, so I'm having a read of it to try and kind of get a vibe about what the play's about. So it's called Round the Houses. It's a good old-fashioned farce. Do you know what a farce is? It's one of these, it's kind of like, oops, Vicar, there go my trousers type plays where lots of silly things happen, where people fall out windows and trip over their shoes and, their trousers fall down, and that kind of hilarity. So it's that kind of play, which is really funny. I love that kind of thing. And it's about a man and a wife that they're separated, they're getting divorced, and they're trying to sell their house. And the estate agent that's meant to be selling the house decides that he's going to invite his girlfriend round to this lovely empty house and pretend it's his for the weekend, like, oh, look at my lovely fancy house. So he invites her around, and then suddenly his assistant turns up to try and sell the house, and then the couple come back, and there's lots of hiding in cupboards and things like that. So it's quite funny. So I'm reading that at the moment to try and get a vibe from it. I'm also doing a bit of writing at the moment. I'm writing up the second part of my doctor's surgery play that me and my friend did last year about two best pals, Agnes and Jeanette, who are both old wifey cleaners and get up to all sorts of jolly japes together. So we're doing part 2, so I'm writing that at the moment, and that's going on in April. So that's kind of my priority. I really have to finish it, otherwise, well, there'll be no show going on in April if I don't finish writing it. But yeah, what else am I reading? What have I got on the go? I've got the Umbrella Academy comic. I got that out of the library because that's quite good. I'm not a huge comic fan, but I do take them every now and again. I've also got a shot of the Crow graphic novel, so I've been having a look at that as well. But I've got about 6 books on the go at any one time. It's really bad, isn't it? And I keep revisiting books that I've read before because I like this. I like the safety of knowing what happens, and you don't have to think too hard about reading it. You can just sit and relax and enjoy it without the pressure of, oh, what's happening next? I must sit here and read it.
I was like waiting like a wee while until I've forgotten enough of the story to reread it, but be able to kind of think, oh, is this bit yet?
Is this bit yet? This bit's coming up. Has that bit happened yet? Now, who's this boy? I remember him. Yeah, I like that as well. It's a bit sad, really, but I'm okay with it.
Do you have a preferred genre, or will you read any genre?
I'll read anything. I really will. I don't like books to be too heavy. So we're in the staff book club, and I've read a couple of books they've suggested, and they're always suggested by English teachers that's like something really with under meaning and things like that. I'm like, oh no, that's a bit heavy for me. I've got to concentrate too hard to read this. But no, I've read some really good stuff actually that I would never have read without them recommending it. I like a historical fiction. Like I love books that are set in the war. I love books that are set years ago. I really like that kind of thing because again, it's learning about a time period that's not now. So you're learning something as well as enjoying a story. So yeah, historical fiction is one of my top genres, I'd say.
What do you think about ebooks and audiobooks? Are they as good as paper books? Is listening to a book cheating?
I don't think listening to a book is cheating, and I think it's a really good way for people that maybe don't have the reading skills to access books without missing out. Like I know that one of the boys that I have in my class, he's reached almost platinum Pret by just audiobooks. And that's amazing that he's really engaged with all these stories, even though it's not a paper book. But that being said, I'm a big paper book fan. I like the physical feel of having a paper book in my hand. And I've tried audiobooks. Like I've got quite a few audiobooks on like my Audible subscription. And I'll put them on in the car occasionally, but I get too distracted. I'm staring out the window looking at a squirrel. I'm thinking, what's for my tea tonight? I just can't focus on the spoken words of it. So I'm very much a huge fan of actual paper books.
The anticipation of
flipping the page.
What happens next?
And I can hold it in my hand. I like being able to spend money on things I can actually touch and hold in my hand. I put off getting a Kindle for years until eventually I realised that I was going to have to pay like £3 zillion in an overweight baggage charge on holiday because I take about 10 books every time I went away on holiday. So I relented and got a Kindle. A Kindle's not too bad because it's still a bit bookish. You can I've got a cover on it, so I can kind of hold it like a book. But like I've got the Kindle app on my phone, and I don't like it as much. It's really good for being handy and for if I'm on a train or something like that, and I've got time to kill. I'll read about my book. It's really handy that way. But it's just not the same. I like a physical book, but I think that's because that's what I grew up on. That's what I started on. You guys are from a different generation. You have audiobooks and ebooks are far more commonplace now than they were. Back when I started reading, you only got audiobooks through the library, and they came on a tape. You had to go and check them out and put them into the tape machine to listen to them. That's what my gran used to do. So you're far luckier in that way. And there's loads of audiobooks on things like YouTube that are free, and you can get Audible audiobooks. Like my little boy listens to an audiobook every night at bedtime. I put Harry Potter on for him, and every night, Harry Potter, mummy, and I put Harry Potter on for him and he listens to the audiobook to fall asleep. So that's introducing him to a story, even though he can't read it. So it definitely has its place in the world.
Do you always finish a book, even if you hate it?
There's been very few books that I've not finished. I've got to really hate it to not finish it, mainly because I'm really stubborn and I'm like, no, this will not defeat me. But some books I have been like, no, I'm done. Like I really did try The Hobbit. Everyone raves about it. I've never seen any of the Lord of the Rings or anything, but I was like, I'm going to try The Hobbit. I tried so hard, but I just couldn't get into it, which is really weird because I'm a big Harry Potter fan and I'm a bit of a geek for a lot of stuff, but I just couldn't get into it at all. But generally, I'll give things a really good go. But life's too short to sit and force yourself to read something that you really don't like. So if you really don't like it after a few chapters, then you know what? That's fine. Put it to the side, pick something else, and then maybe come back to it. But I'm really bad for finishing books in one sitting.
Yeah, I always have to have this thing. If I read a chapter book, which I actually haven't read very much of, because I'm always into my comics and manga and all that sort of thing. So if I read a chapter book, I always like it to have lots of short chapters, because finishing a chapter always feels like a little achievement.
Like, yes!
So if it's like 50 pages long, you're like, when's this going to end?
I know. And you can say, right, okay, you know what, I'll give it to chapter 3. And if I still don't like it, right, okay, I'll patch it. But I'm reading a book with my S2 class just now, The Boy That Harnessed the Wind, William Kamkwamba. It's amazing. It's excellent book. True story about this young boy who built a wind turbine for his village to provide electricity. It's wonderful. But chapter 1 is really long, and I had to do it over 2 periods, and they're looking at me. And it's really interesting, and it's totally setting the scene for the rest of the book. But I was like, well, this is the longest chapter in the history of the world. So yeah, I like a short chapter as well, you know. And then I can not feel as guilty when I go, right, I'll read one more chapter, because I know it's only a few pages long.
Who's the most interesting author you've met?
Oh, Kirkland Chaconi. Has anyone read any Kirkland Chaconi? Not sure. He's a wonderful man, Scottish. Very, very odd taste in hats and scarves and the what? Yeah, honestly. Don't know. Where's my? I know you can't see me because I'm on the radio, but I will Google him right now. He's wonderful. He's written some excellent books. I've met him a few times. And yeah, he's wonderful. He's really nice. We'll chat away. Signed quite a few of my books. So yeah, there he is. Like, he's got a puppet in this picture. You know, that's weird, and I love it. I'm here for it. Yes, you look, lovely leopard print fur coat there. Big specs, funny hat, and he's just wonderful. He's a really nice guy, and his books are fantastic. So if you've never checked out any of his, Glow Glass is a wonderful book. So I highly recommend trying that. So he's really good. And I said I met Jacqueline Wilson. She was lovely. She was so nice and soft-spoken and just wonderful. And, what was his name? Jason Reynolds. He wrote Ghost, Long Way Down. He was at Edinburgh Book Festival a few years ago when I went with Miss Stewart and the gang. He's really good. Wrote a couple of Miles Morales Spider-Man books. He was lovely. He was really nice. Miss Stewart had a wonderful moment fangirling over him, and I got an excellent photo of her literally kind of going at him as he laughed, and she looked all girly and young, and it was very funny. So he was lovely as well. So they were all really interesting people and so lovely, but all really down to earth, and we chat away. They were just fantastic people.
Thank you very much for letting us interview you.
No, that was wonderful. Any other questions? Come on, hit me with some other questions. Let's have some supplementary questions.
That was most of the ones that I did.
Is that all the ones you did? No. So what's everyone else reading at the moment? Anyone else reading anything they'd like to share?
The Bruins.
The Bruins!
I've got it in my bag.
Well, you know what? Well, it was Bunge Day yesterday, so the Bruins.
Really in the Bruins.
I used to read Urbilly and the Bruins all the time.
Yeah.
My gran used to keep a big wad of like Bruins and Urwilly and the Bunty. Now that's way before your time, because that was back in the 50s, 60s, right? Okay, it was a girls' magazine, and it was stories. Like, it was a magazine of stories. It wasn't like magazines you get now where it's like, buy this top and what do you do if a boy doesn't like you? It wasn't like that. It was stories, and I know you got an annual every year, and so she had a pile of them, and they were my aunties. when she was young, and she kept hold of them. So when I'd go to my gran's at the weekend, years and years ago, I would sit and I would read these Bunty annuals, and I would read the Bruins and Willie.
Yeah.
And every year I got Bruins and Willie,
Yeah,
the
same.
annual,
I still
for
do.
my Christmas. And still, even now, like, I absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing
Oh,
a game of 20 questions the other week, you know, when you've got to ask someone 20 questions,
Yeah.
guess, and it was fictional character, and in my head I drew Willie. So there you go. So,
Excellent.
and very appropriate for the fact it was
Yeah,
Burns.
I know, yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else? What are we reading?
I've got Assassination Classroom, Volume 14 on the go.
Assassination Classroom.
Yeah, it's basically about a bunch of kids that have to kill their teacher before
fun.
March next year. The next year.
Oh, I've got a while then. I can run away and hide.
Or else he destroys the world. So there you go.
Interesting.
And then I've also got Tokyo Ghoul, Volume 2.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that in the library.
I'm wanting to read a book in the library called Over Emotional. Not quite sure. I've kind of got an idea of what it's about. It's about a boy or man. Engaging in between there.
In there.
Who basically things happen when he gets in certain emotions.
Interesting.
It's really
You
fun.
guys are so lucky. You've got so many different types of books and genres, and honestly, the library that we had at school was wonderful. It was a really big library, but you know, your choices were there was lots of classics in there that I wouldn't have even touched. I remember we had to do. They don't do it anymore. We had to do a book study for higher English, and you had to pick a book, and you had to write an essay on it. And you could pick the book, and you could pick the essay title. And I did mine on the number one ladies detective agency by Alexander MacDonald's. We did a whole series of them, and it's set in Africa, about a lady detective, like a private investigator type thing in Africa. And it was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My brother did his on Jaws, the book Jaws, like the film. Not a big reader, my brother. No, neither of them are. But yeah, that was really good. But they took that out of the course because I think, well, it was getting really hard to get some people to pick a book to read, so they've kind of taken it away from that. But yeah, some of the books, you know, it was like Pride and Prejudice, and Sense, and you know, War and Peace. You know, you didn't have the manga or the graphic novels or comics that you guys have got, which is insane because the numbers of children like yourselves that are reading is really dropping. But, you know, they're putting a lot of effort into trying to get children reading younger. Because if books are in your house and you see books a lot, you're more likely to pick up a book and read. You know, my wee boy loves books. He's memorised half of them. So he goes, right, Mummy, story. And he sits down and he reads the story to me, but he can't read. He's just memorised it. But that's the first step at learning language. I did a workshop for other members of staff a few weeks ago on dyslexia and the impact it has on your ability to read. And I actually showed the staff, look, this is how we acquire language. This is how we learn how to read. And I showed them the steps and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. And it's actually phenomenal. If you think, how did you learn to read? Can anyone actually remember, how did you learn to read?
It was actually a specific, well, it was my first book I'd ever read. I don't remember how I learned to read, but it just kind of came along eventually. But the first book I ever read was a book called Owl Babies. We've still got it. It looks about like 20 years old. The pages are like all rounded,
Yes.
rounded
I
off.
think I've read that
Yeah.
before.
And I don't know why, but I feel like nearly everybody knows of the book, but they just, because it was the first one I ever read.
The first
really
books
simple.
you read really stick with you. Like I remember reading 5 Minutes Piece. It was called. It was about this family, this woman,
The elephants.
elephant, yeah, and she's like, just have 5 minutes piece. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, I get that. And like my little boy reads it now with my mum, and you know, there's so many classic children's books now, like the Gruffalo and Room on the Broom and things like that. Not the Gruffalo.
I hated the Gruffalo.
I loved it.
It terrified me.
Do you
Now.
I
mean
got
like
nightmares
Gruffalo in
from it.
Scots?
Yes,
Oh,
the Gruffalo.
Gruffalo in
We
Scots
had to
is
watch
great.
the film thing when I was in like P3, and I was sitting there terrified the whole time
I love
because
that.
I
got
it
nightmares from the
scared me
Gruffalo.
so much. Because when I was little, I had when I was little, I had such I was very imaginative, so I could image things standing there, and I could like see them there, and that made it even worse. I saw scary things, and I would not be able to sleep, and I'd go through to mum and dad, and be like, I had another nightmare. She'd be like, oh.
Of the Gruffalo.
I think I was so scared one night, but I didn't want to go wake her up, and I was crying in my bed.
Aww.
And then she was like, "Why are you crying?"
That's amazing. Think of the imagination that book. I mean, obviously, it's quite negative imagination. It's not great, but still, like that imagination that's been sparked from a book is fantastic. Like you were saying about the Gruffalo and Scots. I love them. I love all the books that they do in Scots now. I love Scottish stuff. You know, I did the Matthew Fitz stuff with you guys the other week doing my recording, and the play that I'm writing is kind of Scots language based, and I just love it. And I don't know, do you guys feel like, you know, books that were written in that kind of style of language, would that be stuff you were interested in? Because I really like it, but I don't know if it appeals to you guys as younger teenagers.
Maybe not as much really, but I have a very kind of it's a weird way of knowing if I like a book or not. But usually, a good book to me, it's childhood trauma always adds to a character.
Childhood, we love a backstory. We love a backstory.
And then it's always like at least one of the main characters missing a parent.
Oh yeah,
Always
that's a good Roald Dahl trope, that isn't it? Dead parents, stick them in. There we go. We've got some backgrounds. Always. Yeah. Harry Potter, in the go. Yeah.
Both of them always makes it better.
Raised by a horrible relative. Yep, stick that in as well.
Oh, most of the manga, I've got, I don't know, main character in some of them, but like one of them, My Hero Academia, missing a parent, not childhood trauma, although he did find out that he didn't have a power and he was very depressed about that, so that's kind of childhood trauma. But current traumas always helps, you know, builds a character.
I love it. Oh, brilliant.
Children's book is The Day the Crayons Quit.
The Day the Crayons Quit. I've never heard of it.
I always go in the library.
I've got the second that I can't say.
Have you not heard of it either? Oh.
You've not lived.
You've
Not lived. I've got both of them.
The Day the Crayons Quit is still in my bedroom right now.
Yes.
I always went to the library just to get it with my mum. Like I always went up to the library and got When the Crayons Quit.
Took it out over and over again.
Yeah, it was so good.
The Day the Crayons Quit. Oh, what age is it aimed at?
Probably
Like children,
like 5 to 7.
Oh, right. Hang on a minute, I'm going to
Try and
answer.
eat the crayons on the page.
Oh, yeah. Top 2 searches on Amazon: The Day the Crayons Quit and The Day the Crayons Quit costume.
Costume?
There was a costume apparently.
There's a costume?
I don't
My
know.
Halloween
Right, okay.
costume.
Yeah.
The day the
Robbie
crayons.
Robbie.
Oh, right. Okay.
Robbie
Yeah.
Robbie.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I'll have to
crayons quit and they
investigate
go off
that.
on big trips, and then there's another one, The Day the Crayons Quit Again or something.
The Day the Crayons Came Home. That's an option.
Came home, that's
Yeah.
what it was. And it was so funny. And I think in both of them, the nude crayon, it's like he doesn't have any paper on him. It's really funny. And he's just sitting in the box. And then The Day the Crayons Quit, is that the first one where they were talking about how hard their life is?
Yeah.
The dark blue, the chunky dark blue, be like, please save me from your younger sister.
Oh, yeah.
And the neon one, I'm still in the cupboard. The pitch black cupboard. It's like,
That sounds brilliant. I love books like that. They're really good. One of the ones that I read as a child, and my wee boy loves it now, is Each Peach Pear Plum.
I've never heard of
Have you never heard that? It's a little hardback book, and it goes through, and it's rhyme. It's each peach pear plum I spy Tom Thumb.
Oh.
Then Tom Thumb in the cupboard I spy Mother Hubbard. Mother
I would
Hubbard in
be-
the cellar
I
I
would be
spy
able to-
Cinderella.
I
And
would be
it
able to read that.
goes through
I
all
was
the
too
characters.
stupid to read that when I was little.
Yeah.
I would be like, huh? Wait, that's where. Oh,
Even now, I would slip up.
repetition is so confusing when it's in a. If it's writing, it's like, no. Okay,
Well,
No.
fun fact, it's one of the first stages of language acquisition is rhyming.
Oof.
Is being able to rhyme and understand, because that's how you understand what sounds match and how
That's why
sounds
we
work.
get taught that in primary one.
Yeah, that's why you do. That's why so many children's books are rhyming books. Is one of the first stages of language
I
acquisition.
find it
So there you
slightly
go.
annoying. I mean, okay, if it's rhyming like that, but if it keeps on saying the same thing, it's like,
Right, I'm bored now.
it's like, no, I can't. It gets really irritating if it like keeps on going over the same thing, and I'm thinking, no.
I love Each Peach Pear
Can't
Plum.
deal with
That's
that.
classic. I'm trying to think, what other books does he love? There's one about a dinosaur going for a bath that he likes.
I think I know
The
Yeah.
dinosaur was it the dinosaur when the dinosaur pooped or something?
There's always one like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It has the really fat red dinosaur. I grew up with one of those books. It was hilarious. Loved the book. Don't know why.
Don't know why. I remember there's a book that we had, The Last Nunu, and it was a dinosaur that had a dummy, and the parents were trying to get the dummy away from him but he had them everywhere in the house. Like every time they thought they'd taken them away, he found like another 5. Like they were hidden all over the house, and they managed to gather them all up, and they buried them outside in the garden, and then like 2 weeks later a tree grew that had dummies all over it, a Nunu tree.
Wow.
And so the dinosaur just went and picked them all off the tree, like so that's a really good book as well. But yeah, it's amazing that you remember these books, and it's really sad to think that there are people your age out there that don't have those memories of those books when they were little. I just think that they were such a integral part of my childhood, just sitting reading those books with my mum or my dad or myself. By the time it got to the point where I was like, no, mummy, I don't need you, go away, I'm reading this myself. And I would sit and read it myself. But there's so many other options for entertainment now.
Where's Wally?
Where's Wally? Love about Where's Wally.
I would go to my grandparents' house, and I'd go there and be like, can we read Where's Wally? To my dad, and he'd be like, yeah. And so I would sit on his lap, and we'd do the Where's Wally together. It was so cute. And we'd look for it, and I thought, oh, that was always a good memory.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of my happy memories as a child do surround around books. I remember waiting up till midnight and going and buying the last Harry Potter book at Morrison's at midnight, and then Morrison's. I know Morrison's opened at midnight special for the sale of this book. And I remember waiting up for it, and my dad went and got it for me, bless him. So my dad went dispatched to go and get. Nowadays they have that for I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 24 or whatever we're on now. I don't know what version we're on now. I can't keep up. But I remember doing that for the book. Which one was it? 6.
Yeah.
I remember doing that for a book, and then I remember literally spending, honestly, I didn't move for hours, sat and read it, and it was phenomenal. Whereas now you guys would do that for a video game, whereas we don't have that for books so much anymore. I remember going to the midnight showing of the last Harry Potter film, dressed up in costume, and it was brilliant. The place was absolutely packed. Everyone was in robes and everything. And when Mrs. Weasley vanquished Bellatrix Lestrange, the whole auditorium went, yes! And I was like, yes, these are my people. This is my tribe. But that all love came from books. So, yeah.
I just want to say, you were talking about the Umbrella Academy comics.
Oh, yeah.
I've just picked up the first one from the library.
Have you?
Yeah,
excellent. Now, it's interesting because I'd watched the TV show on Netflix,
I've seen it.
and I really
sister
liked
watched
it. And it was only after I'd watched it that they were like, oh, it's a comic. I was like, oh, brilliant. So I went and got them out, right? And they're totally different, from the TV series and the comic. They're completely different.
That's what I find, yeah. I read we're watching the Percy Jackson series.
Yes.
So we've watched, there's only movies of the first 2 books. Now my sister read, because I struggled with reading when I was younger. So I got the books from my granny for my birthday. I think it was when I was 7 or something, and so she would read them to me at night. But we only got to the start of the 4th volume, and so instead we watched, and then I got the movies of the first 2, and we watched those, and they were pretty similar. But now the series, watching all the 3, watching all of them, it's the series is so different. It's changed a lot from the books, and
I know. It depends. I know what's going on. I don't like this. It depends what you kind of look for in a TV series or a film version of a book. It depends, kind of what you like. I mean, it's like the Harry Potter books. I love the Harry Potter books. I really enjoy the films as well, but I try and see them as 2 separate things. I think of them separately. I like the films on their own. I like the books on their own. But it's like, oh, look at that! 3 minutes to go to the end of the period. We've been yapping so long.
I do that as well with the movies and
I like
the
to
books.
Keep them separate.
Think them as separate TV shows. And
yes,
keep
them separate.
Yeah.
The one thing about manga and anime is that the manga's drawn, so they're very similar, because obviously the manga artist will also draw the anime, so that's always good. Yeah. It's always better in colour though. They're always in black and white. And I was actually reading Assassination Classroom, and I looked up at the Mr. has a poster in the library, and I was like, his hair's not blue. Her hair can't be green. And I was like, oh no. I was like, that's no.
That is sometimes, when you are so passionate about books and stories, then you watch that and you're just like, well, that's all wrong. His hair's not that colour. What's he doing over there? Why is he going there? That didn't happen in the book. Why have they done that? And you can get a bit like, oh, but now I'm like, you know what? We'll just see it as separate and just enjoy it for what it is.
But I was like, Your hair's not blue. It is white. It is your hair.
That's quite a change.
Yeah, it's blue because it's all black and white. So it's in it's a lighter color, so it's in white, and it's like, and then you picture them with that hair color, and it's like no, and it's one of the main girls, and I'm thinking your hair cannot be green. It's not green. And it's like no,
I know.
not green.
It's hard going, isn't it? Well, thank you very much, guys. That was really good. It was nice to do something a bit different and have a yap about all my favourite books with such a lovely group of people. So thank you very much, gang.
Yeah.
Really good to have you. And you'll have to come and interview me again when I've read some more stuff to talk about. When I've read this play that Dan's doing and when I've finished writing my doctor's surgery. So there we go. But I was speaking to Miss Stewart about possibly doing like little radio plays and stuff like that. So I'm well up for that. So that would be good. Jamie's like, yes, sign me up. You'll all be actors in no
You
time.
can do the most stupid accents you want.
Yes. I did an Irish accent on the phone to Mr. Todd earlier. So there we go.
Scottish.
He didn't like it.
Yeah, I know I can do that.
Keep that in.
Because I'm Scottish.
No, but like the
Well,
funny Scottish.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, gang. Right.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.
Scottish.
Yeah.
Jimmy.